welcome to another episode of the Valley of Death, where everything is spooky, but we keep things light. Now, today I wanted to talk about my favorite scary story of all time. No, it's not Friday the 13th. It's actually this very famous American ghost story, and this is the story that actually got me into horror in the first place. Today, I want to talk about the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. As a lot of you should know, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow is the story of poor schoolteacher Ichabod Crane, who is chased by one of the most famous specters of all time, the Headless Horseman. Now, the concept of a Headless Horseman is nothing new. It's been around for hundreds of years, being in other different countries and so on and so forth, but I would argue the most famous story of the Headless Horseman is the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's a natural, good old scary ghost story, which is honestly one of the reasons why it appeals to me so much. It's short, sweet, and straight to the point. No weird plots, no weird stuff. It's just a simple ghost story. Now, I mentioned in one of my previous videos that one of my favorite tellings of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow was actually the Disney version. It's what got me into scary stories. I always thought it was really creepy, and it was also very sweet and very charming in the very beginning parts, but it had that nice underlying creep factor to it. And eventually it got, when we got to the end, we got that really pulse-pounding ride from the Headless Horseman with Ichabod and his horse, and even to this day I still watch it every October, and it is just a magnificent movie to watch, and I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, to watch it. Now, you're probably wondering, oh, I've been really talking about this movie in particular, and you're probably thinking, oh, I'm going to review that movie, right? No, I'm not. Unfortunately. Hold on. Yeah, I'm actually reviewing this movie. The Hollow is one of those straight-to-DVD movies that aired on the Sci-Fi channel back in the early 2000s. It's really not a good movie, and you're probably wondering, oh, why am I talking about this movie then? Well, because I believe it needs to be talked about. The Hollow is a very odd movie, particularly because it does have some things to do with the actual legend, and there's actually some interesting facts that it does bring up, but the whole story actually takes place in modern day time, and it actually follows a lot more of the tropes of, rather than a scary ghost story or following some, plot with Ichabod Crane or something like that, it's actually more of an 80s slasher, or actually, unfortunately, it's more like a 2000 slasher. 2000 slashers are, well, they're crap. The Hollow follows almost every single trope that you could possibly think of when it comes to any kind of slasher. Instead of following in the footsteps of a movie like Frankenstein, Dracula, or, any of those kind of classic movies, instead it follows in the footsteps of Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and so on and so forth. Which these movies were honestly a bit more relevant around this time period, more so because of the rise of movies like Scream. And then during the early 2000s, we were getting small trickles of horror movies coming back, such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, eventually Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason, and so on and so forth. There were a lot of just really bad slashers that were coming out at this time, and it's very odd that out of all the stories that you could possibly try to dig up and then remake into a slasher story, you pick the Legend of Sleepy Hollow and put it in modern day time. Now, one could argue that there is some genius factor to that, mainly the modern day time part. Oh, that actually is done later. Totally forgot about that. But making it into a slasher, it doesn't really work. And honestly, you're gonna find out soon enough. Oh boy. Yeah, this is gonna be a very interesting journey to take as we explore this movie, to be completely honest. Yeah, Jason, you should be honestly pretty dang happy because we're actually gonna be watching a slasher movie. Yeah, I knew it would be right up your alley, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it, but hey, don't get too scared of it, honestly. It's not really that good. Yes, I know, you're the king of all slashers, but hey, even someone like you, I'm sure, can get scared by this very famous ghost story. So, hey, let's check it out. This is The Hollow. Our story starts off innocently enough in a graveyard. Hey, every spooky story's gotta start somewhere spooky. Now, this lovely character right here is Claus Van Ripper, who is the caretaker of the graveyard in Sleepy Hollow.
But this ghost story is different from all the others.
Yeah, it's different because it sucks. I do like to randomly shout and bash tombstones for absolutely no reason. Oh, that's just me? Oh. Hold on, I need to get some help. We then cut to Discount Stuart Townsend, who plays Ian Cranston. He's doing basically this one-man retelling of the legend of Sleepy Hollow to a bunch of high schoolers.
This blows.
Okay. Before we get going with the rest of the story, I really want to talk about this character Brody for a second. Now, of course, he comes off as a very much cliche jock kind of character. He's a jerk. He's obviously some no-brained jock kind of character. However, throughout the rest of the movie, he keeps talking about how much he loves the legend of Sleepy Hollow and that he's so proud of his town's history and everything. And yet, for some odd reason, he finds this boring. Why? I mean, if you're bored of his performance, I mean, I can't really argue with you there, although I think in this particular scene he does a pretty good job. But to go ahead and say that, oh, I'm bored because of this story, it's like, dude, throughout the rest of the movie you brag about how much that you know about the legend of Sleepy Hollow and how proud you are of it. This makes absolutely no sense for his character going down the road.
This blows.
He's basically this weird amalgamation of the jock and a character who has like this absolute love for something, which I guess if you want to give a character, then that's fine, but the problem is that they really focus on the jock aspect of this character to a very heavy degree, while also focusing on the fact that he just loves the story of Sleepy Hollow. And they don't really give him any more than that other than he's the jock and he likes the legend of Sleepy Hollow. That's it. There's nothing more to him than that.
This blows.
Granted, I can't really say that there's much more to the rest of the characters in this movie, as they're all cliches of something or another. It's a slasher movie, what more do you expect? Anyway, Brody and his two friends go off gallivanting somewhere because
this blows.
So they go off to the graveyard to basically get scared.
All it would take is one bad Halloween. Like maybe 3 kids go into a graveyard and only one comes back.
Oh look, cliche number 435. Put your hand in something, pretend to get eaten by something, and then just turn around and go,
Jackass!
So of course Brody's two friends think that this joke is in poor taste, so they go wandering off further into the graveyard. Aren't these kids in high school? Then we cut back to Ian Cranston, finishing up his story of the legend of Sleepy Hollow when, oh, thank God this movie's over. What? It's not over? How much time do you have left on this? Oh, crap. We then cut back to Brody's two friends, Nameless Victim and other Nameless Victim. I'll call her Discount Sarah Michelle Gellar, since that's what she kind of looks like. So, of course, because of the fact that this is a slasher movie, of course you have to bring sex into it.
Is there something to that whole scared sex thing?
Whatever, it's a slasher movie, I really don't care. But we're talking about The Legend of Sleepy Hollow here, a story which has a lot of really great depth to it. Yeah, it's short, but honestly, because of how short it is, it's honestly a relatively effective and scary ghost story. And of course, instead of focusing on something like that, oh, let's set the story in modern day time and make it a slasher movie. And oh, let's make all the characters absolutely two-dimensional and only interested in 5 things. Sex, 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 and more sex. Which I would argue is actually kind of a weird thing for this particular movie, because in a lot of other slasher movies, you have many other jerk-like characters who do actually have other things that they like. Yeah, it's not a much. It's like, okay, they like drugs, or they like drinking, they like partying, or, you know, something. But literally the only thing the characters in this movie who get killed off anyway are interested in are just sex. That's it. Even for a slasher movie, that's pretty hollow. See what I did there? And of course they hear a noise off in the distance inside the cabin. They think it's Brody, when in reality it's our friendly neighborhood Headless Horseman.
Very spooky. You had me going for a second. Hey, Amber, come and sit.
They both get killed, and then we cut to Ian and...
No, I mean it though. You were really good.
Wait a minute. Is that Penny from Big Bang Theory? What are you doing in this movie? So Ian and Karen are basically having a conversation about she's kind of interested in him, he's too scared to go out with her because he thinks that she's the football player's main squeeze.
Okay, first off, I'm nobody's squeeze. And second, Brody isn't exactly my ideal. I like a guy who's interested in more than just my pom-poms.
Yes, I'm interested in people who tell me spooky stories and are interested in my pom-poms. So Ian and Karen almost run over Van Ripper. Oh, what a shame they didn't kill him off early. Where he starts calling Ian teacher for some reason.
Killed you.
I was listening, teacher. I was listening.
So eventually Brody shows up and scares the living crap out of them.
You okay, Junior? Look like you seen a ghost.
So Brody takes Karen back home, and Ian takes Van Ripper back, only for Van Ripper to explain to him just why he calls him teacher.
Call you teacher on account of that's what you are. A teacher. A man called Ichabod.
Ichabod? Like Ichabod Crane? Are you kidding me?
He doesn't get really far, and then eventually he just leaves.
Hey, wait, no.
What?
Well, you might make it. I don't feel nothing.
Darn right you feel nothing, especially after watching this crap. Ian then comes across future plot device, where then he hears someone is coming his way. Dang, look, I know this is the Sci-Fi channel, but that is a really, really bad Headless Horseman. I'm just saying that right now. Just kidding, it's just Brody.
Brody? You alright, Junior? You look like you seen a ghost.
You already made that joke! So Ian gets back home to find cliche number 10. Yeah, it's really that early in the cliches. The not understanding father.
I want you at practice tomorrow.
I can't.
You can, and you will.
Wait a minute. Aren't you the stepfather from the Santa Claus? Where are these actors coming from? So, honestly, we're at the point when, honestly, a really lot of nothing happens. We're just at the school for an ungodly amount of time where we're trying to get character development between all these characters, but honestly, we don't care a flipping damn about them. They're boring. The only thing they're interested in is sex, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, or, if you're dad, football. Football? Football. Because that's a man's game. And honestly, we just follow Ian for the rest of this time period where he's just misunderstood. He gets bullied on a little bit. He gets hit on by Karen some more. His dad basically hates that he's into more artistic things or different sports that are not football. The only new plot development that we get in this sequence is Ian is asked to be the guide for the ghostly school hayride. And that's really it. And he's only asked because the other guy who was supposed to be the head of the hayride got killed off earlier in the movie. So, as you can see, for a slasher movie, this is pretty boring. One of the things that makes a slasher is the kills, whether or not that they're over the top, or whether or not, they are in great abundances, there's a huge body count, so on and so forth. But for a slasher movie, this is pretty dang boring. I think they were trying to make this movie remotely not slashery, but it just comes off as a really poor slasher. Heck, I know better movies that went straight to DVD and video that have huge body counts and are not as boring, but honestly, how could you make The Legend of Sleepy Hollow a story about a ghost who goes around chopping people's heads off on a flipping horse so boring? We've only had 2 deaths in this movie. Of course, Ian accepts, and then we cut to the ghostly hayride. They take one trip around on the ghostly hayride, looking at, high school students doing, spooky stuff, woo-woo. Where then, of course, we come across the main attraction for the hayride.
Give me your head!
You jerk!
Jeez, Karen, relax.
Are you crazy? You're gonna scare these poor kids to death.
What do you mean he scared them half to death? That's what they paid for. Of course, Van Ripper shows up again, and he starts going on and on about, oh, everyone's going to die, this is Halloween, the Headless Horseman is going about already killing people. The sheriff takes him away, calming him down, trying to explain that, don't worry, they're going to go ahead and take all the students away. He lied. But then, the sheriff runs into... That's the Headless Horseman. What the hell is up with that pumpkin? I know the pumpkin is an integral part of Headless Horseman's look, but how can he even hold that pumpkin on his head? It's freaking huge! Makes him look like a freaking Peanuts character. Oh, so that's the Great Pumpkin. The sheriff gets his block knocked off, and the Headless Horseman runs off. We then come across these 2 cliché characters who are simply just out in the woods looking for sex.
Well, for one thing, I'm freezing. It's like 2 degrees out here. I'm not exactly inspired to take my clothes off.
Why are you out in the woods in the freezing cold then, if this is what you want to do? Why not go to a house?
I've got a better idea.
Yeah, because it's really smart to go ahead and just have sex in a random boarded up house. I know these kids are in high school and obviously want their privacy, but even for horror movie standards, that's dumb.
Please, don't stop. Rob, I said don't stop. Just forget it. I said just forget it!
No, that's why I call getting head. Oh, wait.
The Headless Horseman!
There's no such thing as the Headless Horseman.
Then what the hell is that?
So Ian tries to help out the rest of the hayride, and of course they can't get out because what's there? The flipping locked gate. So what do they do to escape? They knock it down, of course! Yeah, that's not gonna lead to any problems down the road. And eventually, Brody does eventually escape the Headless Horseman by, of course, crossing the bridge that the Headless Horseman cannot cross himself. Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm a Patriots fan!
Yeah! Yeah, that's right, punk ass! You don't want none! Go ahead, take it back to mama!
Brody hears Van Ripper off in the distance and, of course, tries to go and save him. Ian then tells Karen to split up from him so that way he can lead the Headless Horseman off, and of course the first thing she does is lock herself up in the shed, where everyone else was getting killed. Good job. Brody and Van Ripper show up, save her, and then we cut back to Ian, who is still running away from the Headless Horseman, and he hides behind the Headless Horseman's tombstone. Good job. Ian, of course, also eventually escapes, where he meets Van Ripper, Brody, and Karen across the bridge. Now they've all crossed the bridge, and they're all safe, and this movie can finally end. Damn it, I forgot about the gate.
I wrecked the fence. The fence that leads into the graveyard.
The gate being broken, of course, is a bad thing because although Ian is the last descendant of Ichabod Crane, it doesn't mean he's the only descendant of Ichabod Crane. Of course, there's Ian's dad. Plot twist! So Van Ripper leads them to the grave of an old ancestor of his so they can get a sword. Well, that's new. And this sword apparently can kill the Headless Horseman because it's from his time period. Well, that's another very old cliche, I guess, but whatever. This movie's almost done. Let's just try to get through it. Ian's mom and dad are waiting on trick-or-treaters when... Wait a minute. Is that discount Halloween music I hear?
I don't want to watch this. Where's the remote?
Yep, that's discount Halloween music apparently. So Ian shows up, basically warning his family about the Headless Horseman. Ian's dad keeps telling him that he's crazy.
Ian, you're acting like an idiot.
The Headless Horseman jumps in, tries to kill the dad. Ian chops his arm off, as you do, and the Headless Horseman runs off. Van Ripper, of course, explains that this isn't the end, and that Ian and his dad need to go hunt down the Headless Horseman and take him down together.
My son's not going after that lunatic. Oh, no, he ain't going alone. You're going with him, Coach.
Ian's dad, as any normal human being would do, basically just goes ahead and says this very calm and simple thing.
You sound crazy. What the hell are you talking about?
I mean, honestly, I think the whole situation's insane, so he's not that off. They go looking for the Headless Horseman at his tombstone, and the most logical place they look up is in the trees? The Headless Horseman, who's most well known for being on a horse, they look for him in the trees. I'm guessing I can see the logic there. Ian's dad gets knocked out, where of course Ian does the most logical thing and tries to goad the horsemen into chasing after him. He does. They make it to the bridge. The horseman does the most cliche thing in the book and appears right behind him. They have an okay sword fight. It's very short, unfortunately. As it turns out, the sword doesn't work. Then why did we go look for that freaking sword in the first place? The Headless Horseman comes charging at him, and Ian remembers a trick that he learned in fencing class. Hey, those fencing lessons paid off. You wouldn't be able to do that with a football tackle. Football! Where he combusts into flames. As you do, everyone makes it all out hunky-dory, and...
You two planning on making babies?
Ew, these kids are in high school. So they go walking off, and of course they do the normal cliche thing of, he's not actually dead. And that's the end of the movie, so what do I have to say about it? It's bad. The Hollow is just an unimaginative horror film, and especially an unimaginative slasher. It's just... slashers at least can get really creative with like their kills or even with their overly cliche stuff and at least have a huge body count, but The Hollow is just bland. They only uses maybe like 4 of the cliches that normal slashers have, but it just uses those 4 and then builds upon those 4 to make the movie, and it's just boring. Even like the overabundance of slasher movies that I watch, at least they have things to keep you entertained throughout the whole movie and a high body count. But with this, it's just boring. Even the kills are bland. It's weird for me to say that for a horror movie, but it's a slasher, that's what they do. Especially for a retelling of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, where it could have had potential for a modern setting with a descendant of Ichabod Crane, and sure, if you're gonna make it into a slasher movie, that's fine, but at least put effort into it. It's bland, it's boring, and honestly, this movie will never become a legend. And that's my review of The Hollow, and Jason, thank goodness you're the king of slashers, because honestly, you'd be able to take on that punk. Wait, what? You don't actually believe that the Headless Horseman actually exists? Are you crazy? I see how you are. Well, to be honest, have I got a story for you. Let's gather round while I elucidate on what happens when it gets late. Long about midnight, the ghosts and banshees gather for their nightly jamboree. There's ghosts with horns and saucer eyes, and even fangs about this size.
Some are fat, and some are thin, and some don't even wear their skin.
I'm telling you, brother, it's a frightful sight to see what goes on Halloween night.
When spooks have a midnight jamboree, they break it up with a fiendish glee. The ghosts are bad, but the one that's cursed is the headless horseman. He's the worst. That's right, he's fried on Halloween night. He goes a-jogging across the land, holding his noggin in his hand. Demons take one look and groan, and they hit the road to parts unknown. Beware, take care, he rides alone. He will spook like a spook that's spurned. They don't like a man, he's really burned. He swears to the longest day he's dead, he'll show them he can get ahead. He say he's tired of his flaming top, he's got a yen to make a swap. So he rides one night each year to find a head in the hollow here. He likes them little, he likes them big, parted in the middle or a wig, black or white or even red. The headless horseman needs a head with a hip hip and a clippity clop. He's out looking for a top to chop. So don't stop to figure out a plan. You can't reason with a headless man. Now if you doubt this tale is so, I met that spook just a year ago. Now I didn't stop for a second look, but made for the bridge that spans the brook. Once you've crossed that bridge, my friend, the ghost is through, his power ends. Oh, when you're riding home tonight, make for the bridge with all your might. He'll be down in the hollow there, he needs your head, look out, beware. Oh, hip hip and a clippity clop, he's out looking for a head to swap. So don't try to figure out a plan, you can't reason with a headless man.